When I saw her for the first time, I knew she would be my next victim. I've always been good at choosing, observing, waiting. It wasn't just the pleasure of killing. It was the control, the power to decide when and how a life would end. I had my methods, refined over the years, but always started with the same routine. I chose someone who wouldn't be immediately missed, someone solitary, with few friends or close family. She fit perfectly. It happened on a Tuesday, specifically late afternoon. I was in the park, sitting on a bench, pretending to read a book. My next victim passed by, running as she did every afternoon, her headphones completely isolating her from the world around her. She ran alone, not paying attention to who was around her. I followed her for a few weeks, mapping her habits, her schedules. During that time, I discovered where she lived, what time she left for work, which days she ran in the park. She was predictable, and that made her vulnerable. I waited for the right moment. I always found it fitting to do what I do on rainy nights. The sound of water falling on roofs muffles any noise. So on this day, it was raining. Few people were on the streets, making the street quite isolated. She was returning from work, holding an umbrella with one hand and a bag with the other. Her apartment was in an old building with a poorly lit entrance. I watched her from a dark spot as she tried to open the door. The key took a long time to work in the lock. It was evident she had more than one key on her keychain, and it frustrated her. I realized that this was the perfect moment. I approached from behind without haste. I made no noise. I didn't want to scare her yet. Only when I was close enough, I softly said her name. She turned around, startled, but before she could scream, I pushed her against the door. I covered her mouth with one hand while holding a small but very sharp knife with the other. She tried to fight, but the difference in strength was evident. I managed to open the door and push her inside the apartment. Inside, the atmosphere was different. The sound of the rain outside muffled any noise as I liked. The dim light from a lamp in the corner of the room barely illuminated the space. I pushed her to the floor and saw the terror in her eyes. This was what I sought. The despair, the realization that there was no escape. She tried to speak, but I silenced her with the knife, pressing it against her throat. I told her it was useless to scream, that no one would hear her. I was meticulous. I planned every detail. I asphyxiated her with a cloth soaked in chloroform until she lost consciousness. I wasn't in a hurry. I liked to savor every moment. I tied her to a chair, making sure she couldn't escape. When she came to, she was completely immobilized. The look on her face, a mixture of confusion and terror, was what I expected. I began the torture slowly, cutting her skin with precision, without hitting vital organs. I wanted to prolong the suffering, to make each second a torment. Her blood flowed onto the floor, mixing with her tears. She begged for mercy, tried to negotiate, but I wasn't there to listen. She pleaded for her life, but all of it was music to my ears. I love being in control of people's lives. I feel supreme when I'm about to kill someone. I remember looking into her eyes, seeing life slowly fading away. I asked if she had any last words, but she could barely speak. It was then that I decided to end it. With a single movement, I slit her throat. The blood gushed out, her body trembled, and finally, everything went silent. I spent some time there, admiring my work. Then, I started cleaning the scene. I was meticulous. I left no traces. I wrapped her body in plastic bags and took it to my car. I already had a place where I usually disposed of bodies, a remote forest where no one ventured. I buried her there, marking the spot only in my mind. I went home, took off my bloody clothes, and took a long shower. I felt calm, satisfied. The adrenaline of the act was beginning to dissipate, giving way to a sense of accomplishment. Another job well done. Another life controlled and eliminated. For me, it wasn't just about killing. It was art. I've never been caught. I'm too careful for that. The investigations always hit dead ends, false leads. I knew how to manipulate evidence, how to confuse investigators. It was a game, and I always won. After all, being a killer isn't just about taking lives. It's about knowing how not to get caught, how to blend in, how to be invisible. And so, I continue, living among you, observing, choosing, waiting. The next one could be anyone. It could be you. What did you think? Leave your opinion in the comments if I should bring the second part of this story. I'll see you in the next story.